And a somewhat positive note, you're Episcopalians, Diana, and the Right Reverend Sean Rowe. Tell us about that.
Well, this was one of those moments this week that actually made me think maybe something I said actually did make a difference. Because years and years and years ago, I wrote this chapter in a book where I talked about the establishment hangover of mainline churches, and that the biggest problem in white Protestant mainline churches is that they still thought like they were the church of the presidents, that they were the churches that were in charge of the culture, and that they'd never gotten over that. And so this was what I called the establishment hangover. Well, I sometimes wondered, the silence was deafening. Anybody paid attention. And I'm not saying that John Rowe paid attention to that particular thing, but it was amazing because just this last week, he came out with a letter. He's the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. That means he's the big kahuna bishop in our denomination, the guy who's ostensibly in charge. And he wrote basically a pastoral letter. And he said it was time to move past this idea that the Episcopal Church blesses the established order as the church of the presidents, but instead now the Episcopal Church has to think of itself as the church of the resistance. And I almost fainted. I mean, literally, it was the most surprising thing that he could have possibly written, because I have seen that very thought be so belittled by so many people in that denomination. And then the second thing that happened in relationship was was because it came from the presiding bishop. All these people at least said, "This is so brave. This is so wonderful." And I sat kind of on the edge of this. I said nothing. Instead, I just looked at it and I went, "Thank you, God." Maybe 20 years ago when I wrote that, it was too soon. You can show up to an idea too early. But maybe he showed up to the idea at just the right time. And now more people apparently have the ears to hear it. And for that, I'm deeply grateful. And I was pleasantly moved by my own denomination, not only saying it, but seeing other major leaders in the denomination back it. And that, of course, gives courage to pastors and lay people who are working for a different, more loving kind of world, and who see what's happening around us now as nothing short of cruel and anti-Christian.
I love the idea of just the right time, maybe just the right time, Diana, because it is not too late, right? It is not too late. And I try never to fail to appreciate how difficult it can be for people with an immense amount of power to risk that power, right? It's one thing for those of us who kind of come up doing this thing, right? That this is, I was a nobody, and what prominence I have came through trying to raise the alarm, right? I had no institutional weight, really. No platform to speak of. And so it's, in some ways, I mean, people say, oh, it takes a lot of courage. The risks are growing. It takes some courage. I won't deny that. But I don't underestimate the cost, right, that people who enjoy positions of great power and prestige, the cost, the risks that they are opening themselves up to lose that power. It's one thing if you never really had the power anyway, right? For people who have that power, that is a rare thing. And I am always glad when I see it, and I do not underestimate the costs for those with power who risk power. It gives me so much inspiration, to be honest. We need more. We need more people, institutions with power to be willing to risk that power, and I guarantee it will be contagious.
and the Episcopal Church, for the fact that it isn't in charge of the culture any longer, it's worth saying that it still possesses a considerable amount of power, mostly through its wealth,
Yes.
because it is one of the wealthiest denominations actually in the world, in terms of its real estate holdings, its pension funds, and it's a very, this is a group that has the power of the purse.